October of 2020 was a very different time in the old world. We had recently made the decision to reset the Nether, and I had spent the better part of the past year working on a central Nether hub. My time in Minecraft during that period mostly consisted of hacking away at Netherrack for months on end. The initial group who had joined the realm when it was first opened had largely dissipated by that point. New players would join, but none would stay long enough to make any substantial impact. Sure, you had your Chozos, your Greenhounds, and your Black Lightnings, but things were mostly quiet on a pretty consistent basis. After finally finishing the Nether Hub, I was left with a feeling of dissatisfaction, and it was time to get back to work. I immediately got started on another essential build, which at that time was just referred to as the new spawn building. To be honest, I was beginning to feel pretty discouraged over the state of the realm at that time. By this point, I had spent over a year trying to grow a player base in the old world and invested countless hours into writing for the wiki and working on community builds, which may never even be used. I still had the desire to keep doing this, but for how much longer I could justify it, that was a different story. Simply put, I was at a bit of a crossroads, and I needed a change of pace. So I started to toy around with this idea of temporarily leaving the old world and getting back to basics. And for some reason, the isolation and simplicity of an island was something I really gravitated to. It was at that point that I started looking into different island seeds, but I wasn't able to find anything that was even remotely close to the image I had in my head. And then I came across this video for custom island maps for the Java edition of Minecraft, and I realized that I could take a custom island of my choosing, convert it from Java to Bedrock, and place it into an existing seed to essentially create the setting for this new world. Then it was simply a matter of selecting the correct island. I knew I wanted something large enough that it could fit about 8 people, but not so large that it would discourage people from collaborating with one another. And on November 3rd, after selecting an island, I presented this idea to the realm members for the first time. It was going to be a survival island with the goal of specifically developing the island itself. What I had noticed with the old world was that whenever new players would join, they'd almost always head off aimlessly in any direction, looking for a place to build. So in creating the island, I came up with this concept called No Man's Land, which basically made everything outside of the island itself anarchy, where killing was allowed and anything built there could be destroyed. So the plan was that we'd do this survival island for a little while, on this throwaway map where nothing mattered anyway, and then we'd return to the old world. Now, the island presented me with a unique opportunity I hadn't had up until that point. It was my first chance to recruit players to a brand new world. You have to understand, trying to promote an older Minecraft world is like telling people you contracted some strange disease. For the most part, people are always looking for something new, something fresh. And when your whole gimmick, for lack of a better word, is that your world is old, you're immediately fighting an uphill battle. So I went ahead and created a very simple piece of advertising, made a few posts explaining the basic premise, and hoped to find maybe 2 or 3 people who were interested in checking it out. There was really no reason for me to suspect that it would attract any more attention than that. But my posts started gaining some momentum, and since it was a brand new world, I just decided to let every single person in. And as these new players joined, they got to building quickly. And in almost no time at all, a community had formed on the island. Now, where most people would be thrilled by the sudden popularity of their realm, I was honestly conflicted, because the island as it had been presented, with this anarchy element, was not the type of environment I wanted for a realm. But ironically, the community I had hoped would develop in the old world had formed in the island, and what I had now inadvertently done was split the player base into 2 camps. There were the old world players who had dedicated time into their projects in the old world, but now there was this new group who had become invested solely in the island. So I was faced with a decision. Do I switch back to the old world, a world that I was personally invested in, but had garnered very little attention over the previous year, or do I stay with the island an idea that had immediately resonated with people basically overnight. But then what I noticed was that the anarchy concept, no man's land, really hadn't materialized. And I remembered that I actually had a third option, a world merge. I would basically take the island out of its current seed and bring it back with us to the old world to unite everyone under the same banner. And on December 1st of 2020, the island officially became part of the old world. In going back and researching for this video, I ran some numbers. Across 3 posts I made promoting the island, 47 people responded and actually received invites. Of those 47, only the 7 are still with the old world today. And although the majority of the players who joined around that time have long since left, the ones who stayed have gone on to have a huge impact on the old world as a whole. On a personal note, the whole experience with the island completely re-energized me at a point where I was really starting to lose my motivation. And I can't help think about the other realms and servers out there where the owners went left when they should have gone right. Because at a time when it seemed like the old world might be coming to an end, it turned out that we were just getting started.